Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. The New Horizon was not a warship. It was built for exploration and peace. Jake had been flying through space for 15 years, and he had never fired a weapon at another living being. Nobody in his crew had either. The year was 3087, and humans had lived in peace for exactly 1,000 years. Jake's grandfather used to tell stories about the old wars, but they seemed like fairy tales now. War was something that happened in history books, not in real life. Jake's ship carried 47 people. Dr. Lisa Parker was his science officer. She studied alien cultures and helped humans understand other species. Lieutenant Ben Clark handled all communications with human colonies and alien worlds. The rest of the crew were engineers, doctors, and researchers. Today they were flying to a meeting with the Galactic Council. The council was made up of 12 different alien species who ruled most of the galaxy. They had created the Great Peace Treaty in 2087, ending centuries of terrible wars between different worlds. The most powerful member of the council was the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians looked like walking crystals, tall and sharp. They thought with pure logic and had no emotions like humans did. Emperor Vextar III had ruled them for 300 years. He was older than any human who had ever lived. Dr. Parker walked up to Jake. She held a tablet showing pictures from their last visit to New Eden, a human farming colony. "The Hayes family sent us these photos," she said, showing Jake pictures of 2 children playing in a field. Alex and Emma Hayes, they're 10 years old now. Jake smiled. The Hayes twins were bright kids who always asked questions about space travel. Their father, John, worked in the colony's main farm, growing food that was sent to other worlds. Their mother, Mary, taught school to all the children on New Eden. New Eden was a beautiful world with blue skies and green fields. 2,000 humans lived there in small towns surrounded by farms. The children went to school, played games, and dreamed about visiting other planets someday. It was the kind of life that the peace treaty had made possible. "They want to know if we can take them on a trip to see the Earth someday," Dr. Parker said. "Maybe when they're older," Jake replied. He remembered being their age and wanting to see everything in the galaxy. Lieutenant Clark's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain, we're getting a priority message from President Brooks on Earth." President Amanda Brooks had been leading the Terran Federation for 6 years. She was a smart woman who believed that humans could solve any problem by talking and working together. The Federation governed 47 human colonies, and every decision was made by voting. Jake walked to the communication room. President Brooks appeared on the screen. She looked worried. "Captain Morrison, I need you to change course immediately. Go to the Zeta sector and monitor Galactic Council activity there." "Is there a problem, Madam President?" Jake asked. "We're not sure yet. Our deep space sensors detected a large Zephyrian fleet moving through that area. They're not responding to our communication attempts." Jake felt a small worry in his stomach. In 1,000 years of peace, military fleets only moved for training, exercises, or ceremonial events. The Zephyrians always announced these activities in advance. "We'll head there right away," Jake said. The New Horizon changed course and flew toward the Zeta sector. It would take them 2 days to reach the area where the Zephyrian ships had been detected. During the flight, Dr. Parker studied everything she could find about recent Zephyrian behavior. The crystal beings had been following all galactic laws perfectly. They had not shown any signs of aggression toward any species. Ben Clark tried to contact other human colonies near the Zeta sector. Most responded normally, but 3 colonies had stopped answering their regular check-in calls. On the ETUSO second day, they reached the edge of the Zeta sector. What they found made Jake's blood turn cold. 12 Zephyrian battlecruisers hung in space around New Eden. Each ship was 3 times larger than Jake's vessel and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The ships formed a perfect circle around the planet like predators surrounding their prey. "Captain," Ben said, his voice shaking, "I'm detecting transport beams. The Zephyrians are taking people from the surface." Jake ordered his ship to move closer but stayed far enough away to avoid detection. Through their powerful telescopes, they could see Zephyrian soldiers moving through New Eden's towns and farms. Dr. Parker worked frantically at her station. "The Zephyrians are scanning the planet for mineral deposits. Jake, They found something big. On the main screen, they watched as families were forced to gather in the town centers. The Zephyrians separated, the adults from the children. Jake saw John and Mary Hayes standing with other parents, but Alex and Emma were being led away with all the other young ones. A message came through on the emergency frequency. Admiral Krylon, the Zephyrian fleet commander, was broadcasting to anyone listening. "This world contains large deposits of trilithium," the alien's cold voice said. "Under Galactic Council Statute 847, worlds with strategic resources may be claimed for the benefit of galactic civilization. All human colonists have 48 hours to evacuate." Jake gripped the arms of his captain's chair. Trilithium was the most valuable mineral in the galaxy. Faster-than-light travel was impossible without it. The message continued. "All human children under 16 years of age will be relocated to Zephyrian educational facilities. They will receive proper training and become productive members of the Empire." Dr. Parker gasped. "Jake, they're taking the children." On the planet below, parents were screaming and reaching for their sons and daughters. Zephyrian soldiers, each twice the size of a human, easily held back the desperate families. The children looked confused and scared as they were loaded onto transport ships. Jake watched Alex and Emma Hayes disappear into a Zephyrian transport. The bright, curious children who had dreamed of seeing the stars were now prisoners of an alien empire. "Ben, send an emergency message to President Brooks immediately," Jake ordered. "Tell her what we've seen." "What are we going to do, Captain?" Dr. Parker asked. Jake stared at the Zephyrian fleet. For 1,000 years, humans had believed that peace was the most important thing in the universe. They had given up their weapons and their armies. They had trusted the Galactic Council to protect everyone fairly. Now he was watching children being stolen from their families, and there was nothing his peaceful exploration ship could do to stop it. "We're going to follow those transports," Jake said quietly. "We're going to find out where they take our children." 3 months had passed since the Zephyrians took the children from New Eden. Captain Jake Morrison had not slept well since that terrible day. His ship followed the Zephyrian transports to a massive space station deep in enemy territory, but they could not get close enough to help. President Amanda Brooks worked day and night in her office on Earth. She had sent Ambassador Helen Ross to speak with the Galactic Council dozens of times. Ambassador Ross was a patient woman who had spent 20 years learning how to talk with alien species, but even she was getting frustrated. The council meetings always went the same way. Ambassador Ross would stand before the 12 alien leaders and ask for the human children to be returned. She would explain that taking children from their families was wrong. She would show pictures of crying parents and empty bedrooms. The council members would listen politely. They would nod their strange heads and make notes on their alien computers. Then they would say the same thing every time. The Zephyrian Empire followed all galactic laws. "The children are now Zephyrian citizens. This matter is closed." Speaker Prime Velthor was the leader of the Galactic Council. He was a tall blue creature with 6 arms and no emotions. He spoke in a flat voice that never changed, no matter what he was talking about. "Ambassador Ross, your species agreed to follow council law when you joined galactic civilization. You cannot change the rules now because you do not like the result." Back on his ship, Captain Morrison received a message that changed everything. It came through a secret channel that Ben Clark had never seen before. The message was from someone inside Zephyrian space. "I am Dr. Zarek," the message said. "I am a Zephyrian scientist, but I cannot stay silent about what I see. Your children are in great danger." Dr. Lisa Parker studied the message carefully. "This could be a trap, Jake. Why would a Zephyrian help us?" "Because some people know right from wrong, no matter what species they are," Jake replied. Dr. Zarek sent more messages over the next few days. He worked at the main Zephyrian education center where the human children were being held. What he told them made Jake's heart sick. The Zephyrians were not educating the children. They were changing them. Every day the children were given drugs that made them sleepy and confused. Machines were attached to their heads that sent electrical signals into their brains. "They are erasing the children's memories," Dr. Zarek explained. "Everything that makes them human is being removed. Their love for their parents, their dreams, their personalities, all of it is being deleted. The worst part was what came next. After the human memories were erased, new thoughts were put in their place. The children were being programmed to think like Zephyrians. They were taught that emotions were weak and that serving the Empire was the only purpose of life. Dr. Zarek sent video footage that he had secretly recorded. Dr. Parker could barely watch it. The human children stood in perfect lines, their faces empty of all expression. They moved like robots, following commands without question. Jake saw Alex Hayes in one of the videos. The boy who used to build model spaceships and ask questions about everything now stood perfectly still. His eyes were empty. Small lights blinked under his skin where machines had been put inside his head. Emma Hayes was in another video. She had always been the more talkative of the twins, full of jokes and laughter. Now she repeated Zephyrian words in a flat voice, over and over. Service to the Empire. Logic over emotion. Individual desires are irrelevant. Dr. Parker worked day and night to analyze the footage. What she discovered was even worse than they had feared. The brain changes become permanent after 6 months, she told Jake. If we don't get them back soon, they'll never be the same children again. How much time do we have? Jake asked. 2 months, maybe less. Jake sent an emergency message to President Brooks. Within hours, she had called together the Terran Federation Council. All 47 colony representatives met in the Great Hall on Earth. President Brooks showed them Dr. Zarek's videos. Grown men and women cried as they watched human children being turned into alien slaves. The room was silent except for the sound of weeping. We have 2 choices, President Brooks said. We can accept what has happened and let our children be lost forever, or we can demand their return. Colony Representative Sam Miller from Mars stood up. He was an old man whose own grandchildren lived on New Eden. What happens if we demand their return and the council says no? He asked. Then we'll have to decide how far we're willing to go to save them. The vote was unanimous. All 47 colonies agreed to demand the immediate return of every human child taken by the Zephyrians. Ambassador Ross delivered the message to the Galactic Council the next day. She stood before the alien leaders and spoke with more passion than she had ever shown before. The Terran Federation demands the immediate and unconditional return of all human children taken from New Eden. We will not accept any compromise or delay. Speaker Prime Velthor's response came quickly. His flat voice showed no emotion as he spoke words that would change the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council has reviewed your demand. It is rejected. The human children are now Zephyrian citizens, undergoing proper education. Any attempt to interfere with this process will be considered an act of war against the entire Galactic Council. The blue alien leaned forward in his chair. Humanity has enjoyed the benefits of galactic civilization for 1,000 years. That civilization depends on following established law, not changing it when the results are inconvenient. We strongly advise your species to accept this decision and maintain the peace that has benefited all. The alternative is exclusion from galactic society and potential military action against all human colonies. Ambassador Ross felt her hands shaking. Are you threatening to destroy human civilization if we try to save our children? I am stating facts. The choice is yours. When President Brooks received Ambassador Ross's report, she called another emergency meeting. This time, military advisors joined the colony representatives. General Rick Stone had been preparing for this day his entire career, even though he had hoped it would never come. He spread star charts across the table and showed everyone the truth about humanity's situation. We have 12 real warships, he said. The Galactic Council has over 4,000. Our weapons are designed for defense only. Theirs can destroy entire planets. If we fight them, we lose. Not just the war, but everything. Every human colony will be wiped out. The room was quiet for a long time. Then President Brooks spoke. General Stone, what you're telling us is that we don't have the power to save our children. That's correct, Madam President. Then we need to find another kind of power. That night, President Brooks made a decision that would break 1,000 years of peace. She opened a secure communication channel to every human colony in the galaxy. "My fellow humans," she said, "our children are calling to us across the darkness. Tomorrow we will answer that call." President Amanda Brooks stood in the war room deep beneath the government building on Earth. She had not slept in 2 days. The weight of making the most important decision in human history pressed down on her shoulders like a mountain. General Rick Stone spread military reports across the table. The numbers were terrible for humanity. The Terran Federation had 12 warships. The Galactic Council had 4,023. Human colonies had defensive shields that could stop small attacks. The Council had weapons that could crack planets in half. "Madam President, I need to be completely honest with you," General Stone said. "If we go to war, we will lose. Not just the war, but our entire species. Every human colony will be destroyed within 3 weeks." "What about our defensive positions?" asked Colonel Nancy Green, the head of Colonial Security. "The Zephyrians alone have enough firepower to overwhelm all our defenses. Add in the other 11 council species, and we might last 1 week instead of 3. Dr. Lisa Parker joined the meeting through video link from Captain Morrison's ship. She had been studying the footage from Dr. Zarek for days without rest. "I have an analysis of the conditioning process," she said. "We have exactly 43 days before the changes to the children's brains become permanent. After that, even if we rescue them, they won't remember being human." President Brooks looked at the pictures on the wall. 47 human children from New Eden smiled back at her. Alex and Emma Hayes were in the center, their faces bright with the curiosity and joy that the Zephyrians were slowly stealing away. "Show me the latest footage," she said quietly. Dr. Parker's expression was grim. "It's getting worse. Some of the children have stopped responding to their own names. Yesterday, Emma Hayes was shown a picture of her parents. She said she didn't recognize them." The room fell silent. Everyone present had children or grandchildren of their own. The thought of a child forgetting their family was worse than death. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system. "Madam President, I request permission to speak." "Go ahead, Captain. I've been watching these aliens steal our children's souls for 3 months. Every day, Alex Hayes becomes less human and more like a Zephyrian robot. Every day, Emma forgets a little more about who she used to be." Morrison's voice grew stronger. "If we do nothing, we lose more than 47 kids. We lose what makes us human. We lose the right to call ourselves protectors of our own families." "But, Captain?" General Stone interrupted. "If we fight, we lose everything." "General, we've already lost everything that matters. What good is staying alive if we abandon our children when they need us most?" President Brooks felt something change inside her chest. For 3 months, she had listened to military advisors talk about odds and numbers and realistic outcomes. But Morrison was talking about something else entirely. "Dr. Parker, you've been studying our military capabilities. What do you really think our chances are?" Dr. Parker hesitated. "Officially, we have no chance at all. But I've discovered something interesting. Several human colonies have been secretly developing new technologies." She brought up files on her computer. "Mars Colony has been working on advanced propulsion systems. Luna Base has created new types of weapons. 3 other colonies have been developing shield technology that the Galactic Council has never seen." General Stone looked surprised. "That's impossible. The peace treaties forbid military research." "The treaties forbid weapons of mass destruction," Dr. Parker corrected. "They don't forbid defensive research or new types of engines. Humans have been quietly preparing for threats just in case." "Are you saying we might actually have a chance?" President Brooks asked. "I'm saying we're not as helpless as the Galactic Council thinks we are. They've been watching us for 1,000 years, but they've underestimated human cleverness." "Colonel." Green pulled up new reports. "Our intelligence networks have also discovered something important. 3 council species are not happy with Zephyrian actions. The Kalari remember when their own children were taken centuries ago. They might help us if we're brave enough to fight." President Brooks walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of humans lived their daily lives, working, and playing and raising families. They trusted their government to keep them safe. Now she had to decide whether to risk all their lives to save 47 children. Her communication device buzzed. It was a message from John and Mary Hayes on the refugee ship where New Eden colonists were living. Madam President, we know the risks. We know what war means. But please don't abandon our children. They would rather die as humans than live as Zephyrian slaves. The message included a video. John Hayes looked directly into the camera, his eyes red from crying but his voice steady. Emma and Alex are not just our children. They represent the future of humanity. If we let aliens steal our children and change them into something else, what does that say about who we are as a people? Mary Hayes appeared next to her husband. We've lived in peace for 1,000 years because good people were willing to fight for that peace long ago. Now it's our turn to fight for our children. President Brooks closed her eyes and made her decision. She walked back to the table where her advisors waited. General Stone, I want you to prepare our military forces for war. Contact all colony commanders and tell them to activate their secret research projects. Madam President, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Dr. Parker, contact Captain Morrison. Tell him to get as close to that Zephyrian facility as possible. We're going to need detailed intelligence for a rescue mission. And the Galactic Council? Asked Colonel Green. President Brooks activated the main communication system that connected to every human colony in the galaxy. Her voice would reach 47 worlds, where millions of humans would hear her words. Citizens of the Terran Federation, today we face the greatest challenge in our history. An alien empire has stolen our children and is destroying their minds and souls. The Galactic Council that was supposed to protect us has instead protected our enemies. Her voice grew stronger. For 1,000 years we have chosen peace over war. Today we choose our children over peace. Today we choose to remain human no matter the cost. I am officially withdrawing the Terran Federation from all galactic treaties. We declare the Zephyrian Empire's actions an act of war against humanity, and we will respond accordingly. The communication ended. In the silence that followed, everyone in the room understood that everything had changed. The 1,000 years of peace were over. Within hours, Speaker Prime Velthor broadcast a response to all species in the galaxy. Humanity has chosen to break the peace that has protected all civilized worlds. The Galactic Council hereby authorizes the complete conquest of all human territories. The human species will be absorbed into existing empires and cease to exist as an independent civilization. The largest military force in galactic history began moving toward human space. But for the first time in 1,000 years, humans were preparing to fight back. The first battle happened near Proxima Station, a small human outpost on the edge of known space. Lieutenant Commander Paul Adams commanded 3 patrol ships that were supposed to be running away from the war zone. Instead, they found themselves facing 12 Zephyrian battlecruisers. Commander Adams had been flying patrol missions for 8 years. He had never fired a weapon in anger, but his grandfather had taught him stories about the old wars. More importantly, his ship carried one of the new Mars engines that the Galactic Council had never seen before. All ships, activate stealth mode, Adams ordered. His 3 small ships disappeared from Zephyrian sensors like ghosts in space. Admiral Krylon, commanding the Zephyrian fleet, was confused. His sensors showed the human ships 1 second and nothing the next. In 800 years of military service, he had never seen technology like this. The human ships struck from 3 directions at once. Their weapons were different too, designed to cut through Zephyrian crystal armor like hot knives through ice. 2 enemy cruisers exploded before the aliens knew what was happening. Impossible, Admiral Krylon said. Human technology is centuries behind ours, but a 3rd Zephyrian ship was already burning, its crystal hull cracked and leaking atmosphere. Commander Adams had proven that humans were not the weak species the galaxy believed them to be. News of the victory spread quickly through human space. For the first time in months, people dared to hope that maybe their children could be saved after all. The real test came when Admiral Susan Carter faced Admiral Krylon's main fleet near Jupiter. Carter commanded humanity's largest warship, the Endeavour, along with 8 smaller vessels. The Zephyrian force had 50 ships, each one larger than anything in the human fleet. Admiral Carter was a calm woman who had spent 20 years studying alien military tactics. She knew her ships were outnumbered, but she also knew something the aliens didn't. Human engineers had been very busy during the 1,000 years of peace. All ships, deploy Luna shields, she ordered. Blue energy barriers appeared around each human vessel. When the Zephyrians fired their massive weapons, the energy bounced off the shields like raindrops on glass. The alien commanders had never seen defensive technology this advanced. The battle lasted 18 hours. Human ships moved like dancers, fast and graceful, while the larger alien vessels struggled to keep up. New weapons and shields gave the humans advantages that surprised everyone, including themselves. When the fighting ended, Admiral Krylon's entire fleet was destroyed. The alien commander's last message was filled with disbelief. This is not possible. Humans do not have this capability. But Admiral Carter's victory came with terrible cost. 3 human ships were lost, taking 200 brave people with them. Every victory in this war would be paid for with human blood. While the space battles raged, Captain Morrison was attempting the most dangerous mission of his life. With help from Dr. Zarek, he had learned the location of the main Zephyrian education center where the human children were being held. Morrison's ship, the New Horizon, was not built for combat or rescue missions. It was a science vessel with a crew of researchers and diplomats. But they were the only humans close enough to reach the children before their conditioning became permanent. Dr. Zarek met them at a secret location near the Zephyrian facility. The alien scientist looked tired and frightened. Helping humans was considered treason by his own people, and the punishment for treason was death. The children are in Building 7, Dr. Zarek explained. There are 47 humans, including your Alex and Emma Hayes. But you must hurry. Some of them are very close to complete conditioning. Morrison's team included Dr. Parker, Lieutenant Clark, and 12 volunteers from his crew. They had practiced the rescue plan hundreds of times, but they all knew that practice and reality were very different things. The Zephyrian facility was enormous, built from the same crystal materials as their ships. Getting inside required Dr. Zarek to disable security systems while the humans moved through maintenance tunnels. When they reached Building 7, Morrison's heart nearly broke. The human children stood in perfect rows, their faces empty of emotion. Machines were attached to their heads, feeding alien thoughts into their minds while erasing human memories. Alex Hayes was in the front row. The boy who used to build model spaceships now stared straight ahead with empty eyes. When Morrison called his name, Alex didn't respond at all. Emma Hayes was worse. She had been selected for advanced conditioning because she had resisted the process longer than the other children. Her personality was almost completely gone, replaced by Zephyrian programming. Dr. Parker worked frantically to disconnect the conditioning machines. Some children, like 10-year-old Bobby Miller from New Eden's South Farm, began to wake up immediately. Their eyes regained focus and they remembered their names, but others had been conditioned too long. Emma Hayes looked at Dr. Parker with confusion when the machines were removed. "Who are you?" Emma asked in a flat voice. "Why have you interrupted?" "My education?" "Emma, I'm Dr. Parker. I'm here to take you home to your parents. I do not know these people you speak of. My life is service to the Zephyrian Empire." Morrison felt sick. They had rescued the children's bodies, but some of their minds might be lost forever. The escape was chaos. Zephyrian guards discovered the rescue in progress and began attacking. Morrison's people had to carry children who couldn't remember how to run or hide. Some kids fought against their rescuers, believing the humans were enemies. Dr. Zarek sacrificed himself to help them escape. The brave alien scientist held off Zephyrian soldiers, while Morrison's team reached their ship with the children. His last words were transmitted to the New Horizon as they fled. "Save them. Save all the children, human and alien alike. Do not let what happened here happen to others." Back in human space, Dr. Parker began the long process of trying to heal the children's minds. Some responded well to treatment. Bobby Miller remembered his parents within days and cried with joy when he spoke to them on video. But Alex Hayes remained mostly silent, confused by emotions he could no longer understand. Emma was even worse, repeating Zephyrian phrases and becoming upset when anyone tried to hug her. The war was spreading beyond the conflict between humans and Zephyrians. News of humanity's unexpected military success inspired other species who had been oppressed by the Galactic Council for centuries. The Kalari, aquatic beings whose own children had been taken long ago, launched attacks against Council supply ships. 3 more species declared independence from Council rule. What had started as a human war for their children was becoming a galaxy-wide revolution. General Stone coordinated attacks on Zephyrian military bases while President Brooks worked to form alliances with the rebel species. The galaxy was changing, and the 1,000-year-old order was crumbling. But the cost was enormous. Every day brought news of battles fought and lives lost. Entire colonies were evacuated as the war spread. The peace that had seemed so precious was being paid for with blood and tears. Morrison held Alex Hayes in the ship's medical bay. The boy looked at him with confusion, not remembering the captain who had once shown him pictures of distant stars. "Will he get better?" Morrison asked Dr. Parker. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "But we had to try. Even if we can only save some of them, we had to try." Outside the ship's windows, human and alien vessels flew together toward their next battle. The galaxy would never be the same, but perhaps that was exactly what it needed. 2 years after the war began, the galaxy looked completely different. The Galactic Council that had ruled for 1,000 years was falling apart. 3 council species had surrendered to the human-led alliance. 4 others were fighting civil wars as their own people rebelled against the old system. Emperor Vextar III was dead. The Crystal Ruler had died when Captain Morrison led a bombing attack on the Zephyrian capital world. Without their ancient emperor, the Zephyrian Empire split into smaller groups that fought each other instead of fighting humans. Admiral Susan Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching Zephyrian surrender ships approach through space. She had become the most famous military commander in human history, but the victories had cost her many friends. Half of humanity's original fleet was gone, along with thousands of brave people who had died for the children. The final battle had been fought near Earth itself, when Speaker Prime Velthor brought the last Council fleet to destroy the human homeworld. But the blue alien leader found Earth protected by ships from 12 different species, all working together to defend human space. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, Speaker Prime Velthor's flagship was captured, and the Speaker himself was a prisoner. The 1,000-year-old Galactic Council officially ceased to exist. President Brooks received the surrender documents in the same room where she had declared war 2 years earlier. Her hair had turned gray from the stress of leading humanity through its darkest time, but her eyes still held the determination that had started this conflict. "The war is over," she announced to the galaxy. "But the work of peace is just beginning." The Treaty of New Geneva was signed on Earth 6 months later. Representatives from 37 different species came together to create new laws for the galaxy. The most important rule was simple. No species could ever again take children from their families or change their minds against their will. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, helped write the sections about protecting young people. He thought about Alex and Emma Hayes every time he worked on the treaty language. Some wounds needed laws to prevent them from happening to others. The rescued children had different experiences recovering from their conditioning. Bobby Miller and 15 other kids returned to normal within the first year. They remembered their families, laughed at jokes, and dreamed about their futures again. But recovery was harder for others. Alex Hayes slowly learned to feel emotions again, but he struggled with memories that felt like they belonged to someone else. His parents, John and Mary Hayes, spent hours each day helping him remember who he used to be. Emma Hayes had the hardest time of all. The conditioning had gone deeper in her mind than anyone else's. For months, she spoke only in Zephyrian phrases and became upset when people tried to touch her. Her parents never gave up hope, reading her favorite childhood stories and singing lullabies she used to love. The breakthrough came when Emma saw a model spaceship in a toy store. Something deep in her memory awakened and she began to cry. The tears were the first real emotion she had shown since her rescue. "I remember," she whispered to her mother. "I remember wanting to fly to the stars." Dr. Parker continued her research into healing minds damaged by alien conditioning. Her work helped not just the human children, but thousands of alien victims who had suffered similar treatment over the centuries. Medical centers throughout the galaxy began using her methods to help people recover their true selves. The new galactic government was very different from the old council. Instead of 12 powerful species making decisions for everyone else, the new Federation included representatives from every known civilization. Decisions were made by voting, and no single species could control the others. Admiral Morrison was asked to lead the new Federation's security forces. His job was to make sure that what happened to the human children would never happen again. He accepted the position with one condition. Dr. Zarak would be honored as a hero, even though the Zephyrian scientist had died helping the rescue mission. President Brooks decided not to run for another term as leader of the Terran Federation. She was tired from the war and wanted to spend time helping the rescued children recover. Her last official act was to establish a memorial fund for all the people, human and alien, who had died in the conflict. 5 years after the war ended, a special ceremony was held on New Eden. The colony had been rebuilt and families had returned to their farms and homes. A memorial stood in the center of the main town, listing the names of everyone who had died in the war. John and Mary Hayes brought their children to the ceremony. Alex, now 15 years old, had grown into a quiet young man who wanted to become a counselor to help other victims of mind conditioning. He still had bad days when the alien programming tried to resurface, but he was learning to fight those thoughts with help from his family. Emma, also 15, had decided to become a diplomat like Ambassador Ross. She wanted to make sure that different species could solve their problems by talking instead of fighting. She gave a speech at the memorial ceremony that made many people cry. "War is terrible," she said, looking out at the crowd of humans and aliens who had come to remember the dead. "But sometimes good people have to fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The people whose names are on this memorial died so that children everywhere could be safe." She paused and looked at her brother, who nodded encouragingly. "Peace is precious, but freedom is more precious. When evil people threaten innocent children, brave people must stand up and say no, no matter how hard it is or how much it costs." Admiral Morrison watched the ceremony from the back of the crowd. He thought about all the battles fought and lives lost. The galaxy was safer now, but the price had been enormous. A young Kalari child, one of the aquatic aliens whose species had joined the rebellion, tugged on Morrison's uniform. "Admiral, my teacher says you saved the human children. Is that true?" Morrison looked down at the alien child, whose species had once been enslaved by the old council. "A lot of people saved. Those children," he said, "parents who refused to give up, soldiers who fought impossible battles, and even some aliens who knew right from wrong. Will the bad aliens ever try to take children again?" Morrison thought about the new laws, the memorial, and the galaxy that had learned hard lessons about the cost of looking the other way when evil things happened. "Not if we stay strong and remember what we're protecting," he said. Above them, ships from dozens of different species flew in formation, their crews working together to keep the peace. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be willing to fight for it. The children were safe, and they would stay safe as long as good people remembered the price of freedom.